So the Supreme Court recently reheard and could quite possibly curtail the use of race in drawing districts under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. In a case coming from Louisiana, the litigation asks whether a court ordered creation of a second majority black congressional district in Louisiana was a lawful remedy under Section 2 or an unconstitutional race gerrymander. Some say the court's conservative majority appears inclined to limit the scope of race conscious remedies under Section 2. What we're going to do is we're going to watch a short clip here of those protesting that outside of the Supreme Court. And then we're going to go into arguments for both sides of this case. And then I'll give my take on it. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And when you do subscribe, hit the notification bell so every time I drop a video, you will be the first to know about it. Let's hit it.
Protect our vote! Protect our vote!
Voting rights advocates rallied outside the U.S. Supreme Court on Wednesday as the 9 justices heard arguments challenging a key provision of the Voting Rights Act, the landmark civil rights law that prevents racial discrimination in voting.
This case is about the black and the brown. This case is about the people whose voices, votes, and very vitality stand and hang in the balance.
The case involves the composition of electoral districts in Louisiana, where black people make up roughly a third of the population. During oral arguments, the conservative justices signaled their willingness to undercut Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which prohibits electoral maps that would result in diluting the power of minority voters, even without direct proof of racist intent. Here's conservative Justice Brett Kavanaugh.
And the issue with that is you cannot prove racism under the law. You can't prove it. You can't prove the intent of racism at all without actual facts. Now, unless they come out and say that we don't want these, Negroes can only live here and they can't cross the railroad track and stuff like that, or laws that say, Negroes can't shop here or they have to go around back, unless it specifically discriminates against the people, you can't prove intent, which is jacked up because all this, the way the country was founded, the way the country was built, created, grew, prospered. I mean, it was race-based. It was based on racism. I mean, it has to be. I don't care what nobody says. When you talk about you pretty much wipe out a whole group of people, Native Americans, and then you put them on a plantation pretty much, or reservation, my fault. And then you find out that there's oil in Oklahoma, just like you're gonna make Oklahoma a black state, or you was gonna put the old Native Americans in Oklahoma. You're gonna put us all in one state. Then once we start getting there, all of a sudden you find out that there's oil in the land. So then you're like, wait a minute, tell you what we're gonna do, Native Americans. We're gonna move you all the way to Florida. Let's go. But then you get rid of all of it. Once you think you find all the oil and stuff like that, then you start letting us come in. And then it's like you find more oil. It's like, wait a minute, well, we're gonna put you here. And it was you were greedy and you didn't want black folks or Native Americans to have that wealth. If we looked like the guy here in this picture, as you see on the screen, you'd have never moved us away from Oklahoma. Never would have thought about moving us from that part of Oklahoma where all the oil was at. But that's what I'm saying, is race-based. If it wasn't race-based, you wouldn't have made sure that the majority, 90, 95, 99% of your slaves were black or Africans or black people native to this land. You wouldn't have done that. You would have, made anybody who wanted to work, made them slaves. But your ancestors did that. So it was based on slavery. And then once all that was over, KKK. What no, what were they called? Not the original police, the paddy wagons, rounding up, runaway slaves, or if black people were seen as were not working and were just hanging around, they could get arrested, go to jail, and then put in prisons, and then go back working on plantations. Jim Crow laws, redlining to where people can move. This is what built the country to where it is today. Creating Freedmen's Bank, and then all of a sudden, once black people put all that money in Freedmen's Bank, now the banks go under, and black folks have no money. All this was done to create the country that we live in. It was racist. Call it what you want to, but now all of a sudden, so then we get these laws, Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act. Couldn't even vote if your granddaddy didn't vote. Couldn't even vote if you couldn't answer certain questions, like count how many jelly beans in a doggone jar. We couldn't. You did that to us, to our people. You're gonna say, "Well, we didn't do it to y'all." It was okay. You did to the ancestors. Let's keep it a buck. But that's how the country was built, thrived for hundreds of years. Then all of a sudden, we're allowed to get some laws to where we can kind of get some kind of say so. 3 out of 5 black people were counted as human beings when we were slaves, with the 3/5 compromise. Stuff just coming to my head right now. But anyway, then all of a sudden we can get us few rights, like say voting rights, Civil Rights Act, things of that nature. Can walk where we want to, drive where we want to, shop where we want to, which some of that stuff I don't understand why. But anyway, we're able to make changes, get things done. And all of a sudden, not even 50, 60 years into it, one of these things you're going to find out not even 2 years into it, you want to change it because now it's not fair. Like, really? You can say that with a straight face now because now it might hurt people who look like this guy right here on the screen. Not that it's helping us, because supposedly we're 13% of the population. So we need what? What's that? We need representation. We need at least, if anything, make it equal across the board. But then people say, well, we don't want nobody just to get in just because of the color of their skin. Well, y'all do that. Trump is doing it, although he is putting people of all races in his cabinet just because they loyal to him. But still, y'all have done it. It has been done in this country forever. And now all of a sudden, not even 50 years into some of these laws, 50, 60 years into some of these laws being enacted, not 100% practice. Now you're getting up. Now you want to change it because it can hurt y'all feelings. Y'all don't think it's fair because it shouldn't be race-based, but everything you have done is race-based. And that's the problem that we have. It's like, anyway, let me finish, man.
This court's cases in a variety of contexts have said that race-based remedies are permissible for a period of time, sometimes for a long period of time, decades in some cases, but that they should not be indefinite and should have an endpoint.
A group of black voters appealed the lower court's finding that a voting map that added a second black majority congressional district in Louisiana was guided too much by racial considerations.
It should be. Hell, it should be. If 1/3 of your population is black, then they should have 1/3 representation, period, point blank. But the thing is, there are other elements that they want to include now that we'll talk about later.
In violation of the constitutional promise of equal protection under the law, lawmakers are allowed to draw maps to favor their own political parties and protect politicians already in office, known in the U.S. system as incumbents. Conservative Justice Samuel Alito pressed this point.
Isn't seeking partisan advantage also an objective that a legislature may legitimately seek?
The attorney for the black voters, Janae Nelson, president of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, said that is not true if the partisan line drawing comes at the cost of the equal protection principle. Liberal Justice Elena Kagan tried to focus the arguments on the real-world impact of a decision gutting Section 2. Kagan asked Nelson what would happen if Section 2 ceased to operate to prevent vote dilution in redistricting.
I think the results would be pretty catastrophic.
The court, which has a 6-3 conservative majority, is expected to make its ruling in June.
Okay, so they got a few months before they make their ruling. I believe it will be catastrophic because now, if I was a lawyer, if I was a judge, then it's like you have to go by the law, which is, like I said, it's been not me personally. Take law with a grain of salt because it can be changed at any time. That's why I don't like people saying, "Man, you got to follow the law, obey the law." I mean, you do what's right. Forget the law. You do what's right. When you're doing what's right in the eyes of the Most High, that's just circumvent any law that's in the books. But like I say, probably as a judge, as a lawmaker, or a law, or somebody who has to uphold the law, when you have to go by the law, it could go against your morals. It could go against your morals. But yeah, this will be catastrophic because it's not. I feel it's not that they're taking away your vote, because a lot of people say they're trying to take away our votes. It's not taking away your votes. It's like the lady said here, it's diluting the power of your vote. If you have a district that's majority black, right? You need somebody that's going to represent you. People that will represent you, that represent the benefit, your benefit, for your benefit. If you don't have that, and you can, and it could be a liberal or a conservative, maybe the opposite of what saying your people like to vote or normally vote for, vote with. It could be a problem because now, let's say if they have, like I said, they created two districts. So let's say out of, I think it's like 5 or 6 of them there, because like I say, representation. Now let's say they narrow it down to one district. Okay, so or narrow it down to one district, or they put together, they go from 6 districts to 4 districts. Now you have diluted the district with the black people in it, so they can all vote, but it really won't mean nothing because it's not enough. It's not enough there. Not enough black people there. You see what I'm saying? In that district, there'll be, let's say, it'll be maybe more of white people voting, because the problem is, one of the big problem is that we don't vote enough. Okay, so you dilute the vote. Now you make it to, then try to make it to where, make it harder for them to vote. Take away some polling booths. Like they've taken away polling booths all over. I know in Texas they have, and the first thing they say is, well, not enough people going there to vote, and so you got this whole big church open, and 10 people show up. Well, we can get upset about them closing them voting booths, or we can get our black tails up and go down there and fill it up. It's as simple as that, to make it harder for them to say we need to close this voting booth down. If you get out there and vote, period. If you don't vote, if only 10, 12, 20% of you get out there of registered voters or voting every election, then when they close a voting place down, those 10 people that went to that church, now they don't have nowhere to go, and now they upset. But how can they fight? Because the rest of y'all didn't get out and vote for whatever reason. Didn't figure out. Voting is like, it's like I tell some family members of mine, people I know, when it comes to Christmas and birthdays, and they say they don't have any money. Now, me personally, I ain't gonna say I could care less, but I'm not really big on Christmas and birthdays. It is what it is, but it's like, 365 days from now, this same day is gonna pop up. You got plenty of time to prepare. So when it comes to voting, you know when the midterms are, you know when early voting is, you know when the presidential election is, you know when the local elections are. They happen at the same time every year. Prepare for it now. Don't wait till a month or a week before it's time to vote and be like, "Oh my God, I don't have my license. Oh my God, I don't have a vote. I mean, a ID card. Oh my God, I ain't got a car. I ain't got to wait down there." Well, damn it, you had a whole year. And if your church is as active as they claim to be when it comes to voting, they'll make sure you got to wait down to the polling place. They will make sure they got a whole year to figure it out. But anyway, let's get back into this case because damn, I done said most of the stuff that I wanted to say in the end, but I just had to go. I just had to do it. So what I want to do is talk about some of the arguments for and against, and then we'll wrap it up like that. So the arguments for restricting race-based redistricting. Constitutional ban on racial classifications. Now, the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause disfavors government action that classifies people by race. Critics argue that drawing districts primarily on the basis of race treats voters as racial groups rather than individuals, and therefore should trigger strict scrutiny or be disallowed unless narrowly tailored to a compelling interest. This line of reasoning builds on earlier racial gerrymandering cases. Number two, avoid encouraging race stereotyping and political sorting. The contention is that ordering map makers to create majority minority seats risk entrenching the assumption that voters of the same race will vote the same way and that elected officials must be chosen along racial lines. Limited race-based districting is presented as a way to reduce racial essentialism in politics. Tell you about this point here, but that kind of hurts me. You do have a problem with people that look like you not representing you. I mean, you really do. Let's talk about like Jasmine Crockett. Most black women love Jasmine Crockett. Anything she say, they love it when they cheer her on. They say she for us. She's fighting for us, all because she get out there and cuss Donald Trump out. And they love that because everybody think Donald Trump is racist and they hate Donald Trump. So they just love it when Jasmine Crockett get up there with her sister girl attitude and talk and go ghetto, talking about Donald Trump. That does nothing for us. But yet she has went out here and stomped for the elemental P community hard, the illegal migrants hard. But yet, and I mean, when you talking about stomping, I'm talking about like trying to get laws passed and people voting for things for them to get equal rights. But yet, I haven't seen her do anything to help black folks too much. But yet she said, hey, we're going to shut the government down because I need stuff for black people. But like what? What do you need? What are you doing? Like I said, what are you doing for us? That's what I understand. Don't get there and say, I need stuff done for black people. So that's why you ain't gonna get my vote and it's gonna get shut down. But you didn't say, hey, this is what my people need. You see what I'm saying? But people hear her say these things and they run with it because they believe that it's true. Now, not only my biggest problem is that Jasmine Crockett is just not really representing black people like that I feel she should. It's that this woman she grew up with two parents, private school, went to college, went to an illustrious college, law school, is a lawyer, and I have yet to see her do anything lawyer-like to help black people. Now, I heard that she got this case that she sued, I don't know, to sue the government for something, but she can't go get her money until she leaves politics. So I don't think she's serious about politics. I think it's like I say, she's just towing the line, getting paid, and then once that's over, once that train is over with, she's gonna get out of politics and then gonna get her money. It's crazy, but that's what I'm saying. Like people who look like you don't. Oh, what's that? What's the senator guy? Is it Eric Holder? What's the guy? I can't think of his name. But anyway, you got senators who act like they for us and they not. You got the Congressional Black Caucus act like they for us, and actually ain't heard from them yet. But maybe they sitting back trying to build up a plan to go at this head first. But that's where the conservatives who arguing to restrict, to restrict race-based districting, those are examples that go in their favor. Cause they can be like, well, you got black folk and they really not representing you like they supposed to be. Cause they ain't fighting for this, they ain't fighting for that. They just out here yelling, cussing, acting a fool, and ain't doing nothing for nobody. So that's where that could be a problem with this. And you could say, well, what about white folks? Well, again, white folks is the majority of the country. They don't really have to be on the same page, but they are when it's against you. Or when it's let me say this, when it's for their benefit. I won't say if it's against us. When it's for their benefit, they're going to be on the same team. But I don't see that with us all the time. And that's the issue. Number 3, textual, structural interpretation of the Voting Rights Act. Some conservatives argue Section 2 should not be read to require or authorize the court-ordered creation of districts that are predominantly defined by race unless the statute clearly demands it. They push for a narrower textual reading of the statute and for deference to state legislators on map design. Recent arguments from the court's conservative wing show skepticism that Section 2 should be used so readily to remake maps. 4, avoiding partisan entanglement and judicial overreach. Supporters say limiting racial sorting also prevents courts from getting mired in highly technical map drawing choices that can be indistinguishable from partisan gerrymandering, a practice the court has largely declared beyond judicial remedy. That the rationale: courts should not be in the business of designing electoral maps based on race when at risk substituting judicial policy for legislative judgment. And finally, predictable administrable rules. Proponents argue that clearer, stricter rules will make litigation and compliance more predictable for states and reduce ad hoc remedies that vary across the courts. Again, if you're going by merit, if you're going by truth, if nobody's being racist or racial or bigoted, these points make a lot of sense. If everything was equal across the board, these points will make a lot of sense. If everybody just did what was right for everybody, these make a lot of sense. But now we're going to go to arguments against restricting race-based redistricting. Number 1, remedying long-standing vote dilution and discrimination. Here we go. Section 2 was enacted to prevent practices that dilute minority voter strengths. Remedies that create or restore majority minority districts are often successful in ensuring minority communities can elect their candidates of choice. Critics of restrictions say curtailing these remedies risks untreated systemic disenfranchisement. Let's say Thornburg versus Jingles remains the controlling framework for Section 2 claims. We'll get into this stuff later. Real world effect on representation. Empirically, majority minority districts have increased descriptive representation, more Black and Latino members in Congress and state legislatures. Which I mean, now don't get me wrong, we need us in politics. We got to have us in politics. We just can't be like all white and nobody else, because then you sure don't even give yourself a chance to have equal representation and to get the things you need for your community. You know what I'm saying? So don't get me wrong thinking, oh man, it doesn't matter who's in there. I'm just telling you, previously, if you go by everything, all things equal, then you can understand where conservatives see how this has changed, because of the way the Constitution is written. That's the thing. The Constitution is written one way, but it was enacted another. In constitutions, you can have amendments, which I don't understand. Like, everybody want to go with the Constitution as long as it benefits them, but then you got all these amendments that were placed in the Constitution, which means that the Constitution was not perfect, and right now it still ain't perfect. It still ain't perfect because you got imperfect people. All right. 3, congressional intent and statutory purpose. Opponents stress that Congress designed Section 2 to be broad and remedial, not limited to proofs of intentional discrimination. Narrowing Section 2 would effectively undo congressional judgment and about how to protect minority voters and would contrave medial legislative intent. 4, practical barriers to political power without judicial remedies. Where state legislatures refuse to draw fair maps, courts and Section 2 remain key tools. Opponents argue that relying solely on political processes will not fix entrenched discrimination in many places, especially where state law or politics block fair representation. Disparate impact matters, not just intent. Section 2 focuses on results, whether a practice has the effect of denying equal access to the political process, not merely on discriminatory intent. Restricting remedies that address this disparate impact would undermine this approach and narrow protections for voters who face barriers because of historical or structural factors. Basically, what they're saying is history is a precursor of future events. Like I said before, most of these laws, most of the things, the way this country was built pretty much solely on racism. It was. And them folk came over here, took over. Them folk, Spaniards and everybody else who had slaves and brought them over here. And the goal was for them to prosper and for us to stay back. Then when we start getting law, when we start getting quote unquote equal rights and things of that nature, then it put the fear in them. But I think it put the fear in them because they're afraid that we are going to do to them what they've done to us. And I think that's what the problem is. Which I mean, hey, if you're guilty, if you got a guilty conscience, then of course you're gonna be afraid. You're gonna be scared that those that you held back are gonna try that, gonna do the same thing to you that you did to them. But the thing about it is, my people, we are a loving people. We embrace everybody, which is probably why we are in the situation that we're in when it comes in this country. But hey, with that being said, I mean, they both sides got, like I say, the conservative side has I'm gonna say the legal argument. The liberal side or the Democratic side actually has the real life argument, the practicality. And this is where the problem lies because, again, I believe that the judges are going to go by law. And I mean, what can you do about it? But but stuff like this is what you need to be protesting. Stuff like this is the reason why every black person that is registered to vote need to vote somehow, some way. But you need to learn the laws. You need to learn your candidates and what they represent before you go down there and vote. Not just by color or whatever the case may be, but vote by uh, by policy because that's how you get done what you need to get done, not just by color. 'Cause like I said, we got a lot of people out there that look like us and ain't doing for us. Okay, so let's continue to say legal and factual friction points. Why this issue is hard when is race the predominant factor? Courts must decide how to separate permissible consideration of race from unconstitutional predominance of race. Drawing that line is fact intensive and technical. Interaction with partisan gerrymandering law. The court has limited court's roles on partisan gerrymandering, but permits race-based claims. Narrowing race-based remedies may tip the balance in favor of maps that are in de facto racial or partisan exclusions, but hard to challenge. Likely consequences if the court tightens the restrictions, there are going to be fewer majority minority districts in states where courts previously required them to cure dilution, especially in the South. Studies and litigators sworn that this could affect representation in up to a couple of dozen congressional seats. And that's what it was. I mean, that's the thing about it. Like they were saying, just 2 years ago, this same court case, this same issue came up and the Supreme Court said we're gonna keep it in place because it's fair. Now all of a sudden you get Donald Trump in office, you get a couple of more of a conservative judges in, Republican judges in. Let's say that, because I would call myself more of a conservative than definitely before. Then I would call myself a liberal. A Republican leaning judges in. So now they're saying, well, maybe this is not right. Let's look into it. You see what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. It's about voting. It's about getting into politics. It's about knowing the law. It's about people like, say, Jasmine Crockett actually being a lawyer trying to become a judge. So she maybe could try to become a Supreme Court judge if you get another Democrat into the doggone me presidency. You see what I'm saying? That's the type of Thurgood Marshall was a Supreme Court judge. He wasn't sitting out here doing this, cussing out the presidents back then and calling them out their names and talking about how stupid and ignorant they was and the piece of SH they were. That man was a lawyer. He tried cases for his people and eventually became a Supreme Court justice. That's what we need Jasmine Crockett to do. Not sit here and go and play the dozens with the president of the United States. Like, really. You see, possible responses and remedies outside the court. Congressional action. Congress could amend the Voter Registration Act or pass clarifying legislation, though political prospects or uncertain civil rights groups are likely to press Congress if the court narrows Section 2. They should start it now. Don't wait till they actually pass it, make a ruling on it and then come out there and start crying. It's too late then. You're going to have to go ahead and get it done. You understand what I'm saying? But yeah, that's it in a nutshell. But like I said, I pretty much already told you, say what I wanted to say. It's not, I mean, this is something that's we really going to have to keep an eye on and really follow, and really, hopefully, the Congressional Black Caucus actually does something for us. Get people like Al Sharpton to actually do stuff for us, Jasmine Crockett to actually do stuff for us. And these are just the people that's like prominent people that, actually can protest and get the word out, get the money, get the, get the George Soros to get, money together and stuff like that, and try to get this to make and get ready for a long legal battle. That's what we need to do with that there. So we're gonna be watching this for a while. We're gonna see how it goes. Like I said, we got till June. Then once in June is when they're gonna make their ruling. So we're gonna stay updated then. But anyway, tell me what you think about this story. Leave your comments below. Share it with the world. Let's have an intelligent conversation. You know how we do it right here. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Those 4 things cost you maybe a couple of minutes out your day, but it means the world to us here at this channel. And with that being said, I leave you in peace, and I'll see you on the other side.